Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Hammer. Today is Monday, August. Today is Monday, August 5th, 2024. I, of course, am Hammer with Originator Success here with the Daily Mortgage Rate Update, the Olympus on the web, where you guys can join me live each and every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Remember, you can join me live each and every weekday. If you're watching on the replay, don't forget to give me hashtag replay. Let me know that you were here. Don't forget to smash that like button, tag another friend, share us in a group. Ron, overreaction 100,000%. But let's talk about it. So anyway, if you're here this morning, say good morning. Remember, you can go ahead and get our written lock advice, www.ratelockadvice.com. You can get our text alerts, www.ratetextalerts.com. You can get reminded I'm going live at hammer.io/reminder. Last but not least, check us out at originatorssuccess.com. Find out how we help you get loans from Google and social media. If you're here this morning, go ahead and say good morning. Let me know that you were here. Let's go ahead and say hello to everybody. Let's see here. We got Mr. Ron Siegel this morning, where it's National Oyster Day. That's what it tastes like this morning, is oysters. Mallory Fodiatis, good morning. Yasmin Martin, great to see you. Amy Blauser, good morning. Monica Dinkins, good morning. Sean Segaloff, great to have you here. Mike Tebow, great to see you, sir. Tina Brumond, hello. John Jones, Angela Walters, Mike Schmolgan, Teresa, great to see you, Teresa. I haven't seen you in a long time. Hope all is doing well in your world these days. Benoit, great to have you here, my friend. If you're here this morning, make sure you go ahead and say good morning, and we'll dive in. Chris Burleson, good morning, sir. So great to have all of you here. All right. Let me see. Let me pull up my captions. Let's get to the good stuff. So this morning, rate sheets are going to be better, but they're going to be all over the place. All right. So here's the deal. As we woke up this morning, the stock markets, global markets have been selling off through the weekend and early morning. It's a bloodbath in the stock markets, right? Bonds rallying, doing really well. Bonds opened up very, very well. They were up like 50 basis points. They've come back down since then, but huge reactions this morning. All right. And what happens when we have this kind of volatility? Lenders, lock desks, secondary departments, they have a lot to deal with and mess with when it comes to this stuff, right? When we've got this kind of movement, you've got a lot that goes into pipeline management when rates move this much. Believe it or not, as much as you think that, say, hey, originators love when rates go down, consumers love when rates go down. But when rates move this much, when we see the market reactions and overreactions that we're seeing right now, it's actually not good for rates and not good for the market. It's too much. So you're going to find rate sheets are going to be all over the place, but they are going to be better. Obviously, a lot better than what we saw, just a couple weeks ago. Reprice risk on the day is moderate. Remember something. Again, we are dealing with the realities of an extremely volatile market and with rates dropping significantly. So what happens is normally reprice risk is tied into what's going on with mortgage-backed securities. If mortgage-backed securities start to lose ground, then you see lenders reprice worse. Well, you're likely to see lenders getting hit with volume spikes, right? We're going to see a big influx in volume. A lot of lenders are going to tweak their pricing according to volume. And part of the reason they do that is to control how much volume they have coming in, because they need to turn off the spigot, right? If there's too many loans coming in, we have reduced workforces. We've been in a down mortgage market for the last 18 months, 2 years, right? So, where you've got less underwriting, less closing, less staff, a huge influx in volume is as bad as no volume. So you do need to realize, be careful about pricing, because you're going to see some erratic reprices. And I'm going to get those messages where people are going to be like, Hammer, why did, so-and-so just raise their rates? And it's because they will control volume. Also, remember, you're going to have lock desks that we're dealing with. Last week, we saw rates move. We've dealt with float downs. You had pipeline protection going on, a lot of things. Well, now we're seeing just a huge runaway in the market. So that is blowing things up. Good morning, Mr. Christopher Griffith, Jessica Wells. Great to have you here. Jessica, welcome to Originator Success and Elite. Lee said, I dislike huge drops, slow and easy, float. Exactly. Yasmin said, how will Japan's issues affect our rates? They already are, Jasmine. It's playing into the whole thing. There is huge, markets are all over the place. They are going nuts right now. Good morning, Mr. Jimmy Preen. Mandy King, it's great to have you here as well. So let me go ahead and let's throw this up on the screen, and we'll kind of show you guys here. Let me put the overlay on. There you go. I like it when the chat is on there. Okay. So taking a look here, let me go ahead and get rid of this here. Let's talk about what's going on. So huge global sell-off, right? You see that on any of the headlines here. Stocks fear gauge set for the biggest jump in 30 years. That's what they call their VIX, the fear gauge. All right, the biggest jump in 30 years. Let's take a look at what is going on with Fed futures and how out of control this is. So right now you say, oh, it's an 86% chance of a Fed rate cut in September. That's not that different, Hammer. Look at the number on the bottom, 4.75. Markets are pricing in a half a point rate cut versus a quarter point rate cut. When we compare that to where we were at, look at the difference. I mean, we can't even get up here, right? Like where we were, there was before, it was an 88% expectation that we'd see a quarter point cut a week ago. Now that's up to a full half a point. There's even some small movement of 3/4 of a point. You've got some really, really ridiculous things going on here right now. Let me see. We've got, of course, there's a lot of concern over what's going on with Israel and Iran. This is always something that can cause a flight to safety, but this is taking almost a backseat compared to everything else that's going on. Let me see if I can get to. You know what? Let me see if it'll come up in my notes here. So I took this morning. Can I make this bigger so that? Let's see if can we zoom in on this? All right. So fear has led markets to ignore the fundamentals, said Elias Haddad, a senior market strategy at the firm. One must not forget the market has been wrong about the Fed easing path this entire cycle. That's something that I would really that I would want to emphasize what he just said, because he's absolutely correct here. I'm just gonna move these comments over here because it's not really doing anything for us. So looking at these comments here, remember something. Markets in March were anticipating 7 rate cuts this year. And then it came down to where we were only expecting 2. Markets don't drive this stuff. They're not correct. Right now, markets are pushing. You're hearing people like Jeremy Siegel, who is he's at Wharton's. I'll tell you, anything that you hear him, he sounds like a big Fed hater for this particular Fed, though. I don't want to go too long on this one, but he definitely sounds like a Fed hater here. And he has been basically saying that the Fed needs to make an emergency 75 basis point cut. There's a lot of talk about the Fed making emergency cuts before the September meeting. That is absolutely not going to happen. The Fed is not going to reward this market panic with more panic. The Fed has no need to panic. What we saw on Friday was one labor report where unemployment went from 4.1 to 4.3%. 4.3% is amazing unemployment numbers. It's not like we went from 4.1 to 6. Okay. There hasn't been a huge issue. We know that those BLS labor numbers are skewed. It came in at 114,000 jobs. One time it came in at 350,000. They can go plus or minus 100,000 in the revisions, right? So the Fed is not going to react to this the way that markets are reacting to this. This is such a huge overreaction. It is absolutely insane. What markets are calling for in December, remember, just a week ago, we were looking at, maybe here's 2 rate cuts. Here were 3 rate cuts. Now markets are looking for 4, maybe 3.75. We're at 5.25. That's 1.5 rate cuts. The Fed, the actual Fed members, they've come out before this stuff. Let me get rid of this. Every time I change those screens. So, the Fed members came out. They're looking for, 1 rate cut a quarter. When you look at the dot plots, they were looking at 2 rate cuts for this year. 2, maybe 3. Now market's calling for 1.5 points. We're talking before from quarter point rate cuts. Let me drink here. Ron said, "I'll bet a Diet Coke." Ron, why do you think that that there'll be a emergency rate cut? Market will be a 5-ticket attraction this week. Iran also got a big impact on the market as well. Yes, and again, the Iran is Israel issue going to be more of an issue right now, taking a bit of a backseat, but definitely at play. There's now discussion on business channels of an emergency rate cut prior to the next meeting, especially if the ISM comes out below 50 today. I don't think that the Fed is even remotely considering an emergency rate cut. I don't think coming right off that July meeting, I do remember we just got a week away from the July meeting. I do not think that they are thinking of an emergency rate cut because of the markets panicking. What we are seeing is the result of market panic. We haven't seen the economy dip into a huge recession. Now, we could argue the inversion to the 2-year, 10-year yield curve. Remember, it was an inverted yield curve. That's supposed to, designate that a coming recession. Well, it's been that way for 2 years, and actually it's coming out of it now. So we may actually get the recession. Everything may be delayed, but what's there? Ron said most of the voting members are lawyers. They're not following the real data. They're following the headlines. Ron, I got to disagree with you, man. Goolsbee was out there this morning. I think we're going to see a lot of Fed speakers this week trying to calm things down and, kind of slowing this down. It's absolutely gotten out of control with where things are at. It's way, way, way nuts for where we are. Rates this morning are all over the place. Bonds rallying strong in the backs of bleeding global markets. The problem with bonds, though, just plummeting is that rates can't keep up with the huge implications and the fallout. Remember this. So this is what's really, has to do with our world is, we see like this 10-year treasury yield. Take a look here. The 10-year treasury yield it's just insane how far it's dropped. We went from 4.18, 4.19 to 3.72. That's 50 basis points. That is huge. Just look at this in a 6 month. Look at how this just drops straight down. It's too strong of a reaction. Look what happened with mortgage-backed securities blasting right off, just through the roof. Now, again, we also have another, let me refresh this so we can see. We were up 50 basis points to start the day. Now we're up 20 basis points here. Big, which is a big difference there that's going on. The Fed is not going to just panic drop everything and have inflation turn around and skyrocket, because we know that the stock markets, they've been overinvesting in AI. There's talk that this is an AI bubble already, just like we had a tech bubble. And again, there's a lot of talk, but the bottom line is that for mortgage rates, there's a lot of implication when we have this kind of movement, when bonds move this much. You've got EPOs. Loans that closed a month ago are now looking at EPOs. Loans that were floated down already that, people are going to want to renegotiate again. Pipeline fallout, volume spikes. All of this is a nightmare for mortgage lending that we have to deal with. So it's going to affect your rate sheets. We could look at the stocks. We could look at Bloomberg. We could look at the charts. But when it comes to what's actually rates hitting the road, it's going to be all over the place. Secondary departments and lock desks have their work cut out for them trying to navigate through this mess. And you're going to have to be patient with your lenders. If you're a broker, you may find that you've got some different things. You also be careful pulling loans from people. They're going to take that personally if they're locked loans, right? They're going to be looking for that right now. That's because it's not just one loan. It's going to be thousands of loans. So it's going to affect their bottom line, and they're going to be very, very aware of all this. Ron said prior to this meeting last week, Goolsbee was saying that we should have cut in July. Yeah, he's definitely more dovish. Then he came out and said it was unanimous for they said it was unanimous for whatever. Many of us have been saying we've been in a recession since last October. We never know until many months, years later. The report that Warren Buffett has reduced his holdings for many weeks now is a big market mover. Absolutely. And it's all chicken little, the sky is falling. Everything that's going on in stocks, chicken little, the sky is falling. Huge headlines, huge numbers on all this stuff. Again, as it comes to mortgage rates and pricing, anything closing the next couple of weeks, I'm looking at locking. We were talking about the inflation data coming out next week. The problem is that inflation data, it's not going to really matter. We've seen such a reaction, such an overreaction when it comes to what's going on with the rest of this data, with what's going on with how markets are currently pricing in on this. It's not going to matter. Let me see about this. Whoop, there you go. Okay. It's not going to matter how that inflation data comes in, because markets have already, they are way past where that reaction should be. This is an overreaction. There's a panic reaction. It is not how things should work. So now we've got inflation data coming out in a couple of weeks that was going to be a really big deal, that now it might not be a big deal at all. It might only help us catch up. This puts a lot, and here, I want to change this because this is not the lock advice. Sorry, this is incorrect. I need to update this. So anything in 15 days, I'm looking at locking. If it's closing in the next couple of weeks, rates are going to be all over the place. I would be locking. If everything else, let me see. 15 plus cautiously float. All right, hold on. I'm saving this for you here. All right. So looking at the lock advice, it's there now. That's the reality. Anything in the next that's closing in the next couple of weeks, I would be locking, because the reality is rate sheets are all over the place, but we're going to see a pullback. This reaction cannot sustain. It's way overreaction. Now, not just to the jobs data, it was a bad jobs report, but it was still one report. And even, Powell said in his news conference, the Fed is not going to fixate on one report. They're looking at all the data as a whole, and they want to see signs that the economy is slowing down. They want to see signs that the labor market is slowing down. They want to see signs that inflation is continuing to drop. They want to see those things, and they're okay pushing us into a recession. They're not the ones that were guaranteeing a soft landing. They're okay pushing us into a recession to get us in where we need to be and get that Fed funds rate to what they call neutral level, which is, some people consider it to be in those mid threes, and they plan on doing it over time. When you look at the dot plots for this here, the market, the different Fed members are looking at one rate cut a quarter point. Now, granted, they will be more dovish as we move to the next meeting and things like that, but they're not going to turn around and change altogether. Mike, absolutely, I agree with you what you said here. Mike said the Fed's calling an emergency meeting will cause a problem. The guy Jeremy Siegel, he said, "Oh no, that'll help markets recover. They'll take off from that." And everyone else is like, "No, not really. If the Fed were to turn around and run an emergency meeting right now, what that would signal is pure panic, like what we had going on during the pandemic." And the Fed is not panicking. The market is panicking. Traders are panicking. The Fed is not panicking. John said live, pop, lock, and drop it for loans closing in less than 15 days. Absolutely. I would be locking anything that's in the next couple of weeks. And I would consider locking some of the others too, depending on when you see these rate sheets. Remember, rates are going to be erratic. They're all over the place. And depending on if you're wholesale, what lenders you have access to, different retail, you're going to have all these things. Ron said there's lots of evidence the economy is very weak, and we've been told for months how good things are. And I agree. We've been talking about the fact that all of the good economy, all the consumer spending has been on credit. People are spending money they don't have. So we know that. Unemployment at 4.3 is understated when we see that U6 rose 0.4%. U6, I don't know what U6 is. I should know, but I don't know. Good morning, Dana. But definitely keep that in mind. I agree with you, Ron, that people are doing, we are in a type of recession. People are spending money on credit. It's all coming. But what this means is mortgage rates, they're going to keep easing their way down. We're going to see rates, but we're going to see right now what we're seeing is extreme volatility, and there's a lot of risk to this. You're going to see rate sheets that are all over the place. I've said this many, many, many times. You're also going to see lenders that are repricing worse, and you're like, why are they doing that? It doesn't make sense. They're going to be trying to control volume. So all of that stuff. Tim Hart, good morning, sir. So thanks, Ron. U6 is unemployment and underemployment. So, again, I'm going to wrap it up now. I'm just going to repeat myself here. Be careful. My advice, as it's down here, I would lock anything closing the next couple of weeks. Rate sheets could get a little bit better, but with all this volatility, the overreaction, it's going to be a while, but we can't sustain these projections on where the Fed is going to be. Markets anticipating the Fed will have cut by 1.25 by the time we get to the end of the year, possibly 1.5. It's too much. The Fed is not going to cut that hard. they would be, the risk to pushing inflation would be huge. Ron said we'll get a story from Nick Timiraos. The Fed is considering an intermeeting cut, and then it will happen. That's Ron's prediction. We will get to see if Ron is correct. Ron thinks that they're going to whisper through Timiraos that it's coming and that it will happen. Ron, I don't think it's going to happen. I do not think that we have any concern. I think it'll be the full 6 weeks, September 18th. I think the first rate cut possibly comes in at a half a point if we get another labor report that gets worse. As of right now, if things kind of level off, I say it's a quarter point. If we get another weak labor market, if unemployment goes up again, then I say maybe we see a half point for that September cut. But that's as accommodative and dovish as I think the Fed is going to get. Markets, as you said here, markets always overreact. It's way too much of an overreaction right now. Huge overreaction. Thankfully it helps rates right now. But again, this is not as rosy and wonderful as it's made out to be, because even helping mortgage rates, it's too much too soon. We've got EPO risks now we have to deal with. You've got, lock desks that are trying to control their hedge and their profit. Companies, believe it or not, companies can go broke doing too much volume during a volatile time like this. It can lead to losing massive amounts of money based on how things are moving. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes at lenders. We are not bond traders. We're not just looking at wonderful, you're going to have all these posts on Facebook of loan officers that are going to be, putting pictures of candlestick charts on there. By the way, that's terrible marketing. Don't do that. But they're going to be using candlestick pictures and it's amazing. No, it's not as amazing as you think it is. Remember, it's too much of a good thing. If you have too much candy, too much ice cream, too much sugar, and you throw up, that's kind of where rates are at right now. This is too much of a good thing, and it's a lot more than we would want to see at any one time, and that's a big problem, and that's kind of where we're at. So, all right, my friends, appreciate all of you. I will see you guys tomorrow. Ron, I am on a family vacation on Friday. Otherwise, I would have jumped on your show to debate it, but I am on a family vacation, and I will not be doing any of my stuff there. So Dave said erasing your candlesticks. Absolutely. Good memes, Dave. Good memes on Facebook will absolutely outperform Japanese candlestick chart pictures. Brandy, good morning. Great to see you. So, all right, everybody. Again, just be careful. Don't take for granted that we're just going to ride off into the sunset with these fantastic rates. It's not necessarily the case. Expect volatility. There is a lot of risk right now, not just because of what's going on in bonds, but because what lenders have to do during this kind of volatility to make sure that they stay profitable. Believe it or not, lenders can do a lot of loans and lose a lot of money if they mess up on the hedging and how they're putting loans to secondary and things like that. We have to remember that. That's what's different about the mortgage business. It's not just about what's going on Bloomberg TV. It's about what's going on their ledgers, in their cash flow, on their hedging. So, all right, my friends, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.